Beautiful art from simple text prompts, but it comes at a price. DALL-2 charges 3.26 cents per image, and every prompt forces you to generate 4 images at a full upscaled resolution, which means every time you press that generate button, it costs 13.04 cents. There are no discounts for bulk purchases, no unlimited memberships, and basically no way to get a cheaper price. At the same time, the image coherence is fantastic, and the results you can get with in-painting and out-painting are simply unmatched by other models. But that price is meaningless if you don't consider the competition. Now that the beta is open, I can dive in and compare DALL-2 with the other public AI models, notably MidJourney and Stable Diffusion. I'm going to talk about price, quality, and experience for all 3 of these models so you can decide for yourself where to invest your money. If you like this sort of video, go ahead and smash that subscribe button because this is becoming the main content on my channel and I wouldn't want you to miss a video. Let's start by going over the prices for these 3 models so you can better understand the baseline we're working from. You're probably aware DALL-2 is the most expensive option per generation. For $15, you get 115 generations, and refills come in $15 increments, so that price is the price. I'll add that with your DALL-2 account, you do also get 50 free generations and an additional 15 every single month. So after a year of using all those free generations, that comes out to about $30 of value for absolutely free. For Stable Diffusion on Dream Studio, you get 1,000 generations for €10, which right now is $9.87. Though Stable Diffusion's model is completely open source, so if you have the hardware and you're tech savvy enough, you can run it for absolutely free on your own machine. MidJourney's pricing is not quite as simple since it runs on a subscription basis, but the best deal on average gets you 900 generation actions, that includes like upscaling, all in fast mode, and unlimited generations if you're willing to wait in a queue, and that's all for $30 a month. For free, MidJourney also gives you about 25 generation actions before they require you to sign up and pay for one of their plans. Now, if the end results after clicking generate on these websites were the same, it seems obvious which plan to go for. Dream Studio is the best deal, unless you plan on spending more than $30 month over month, in which case, go to MidJourney. The problem is, the results are not the same. Each of these models give you pretty different images, and I think the main reason you clicked on this video is because you want to know which models works the best for which tasks. We made it. We talked about price, and now it's time to talk about quality. Here's the deal. I've used these AI to generate about 5,000 images in total, but I think of myself as a fan of them rather than an expert. If I just tell you which one is best, I don't really have the credibility to stand on. Instead, I'm going to show you my work and tell you both what I believe and why. So if I'm going to compare these models, I want to be very clear about what metrics I'm comparing them on. I have come up with what I'm calling the 5 dimensions of AI art: coherence, knowledge, intelligence, style, and creativity. When talking about image creation, those words might sound like a bunch of synonyms. I'll admit, they kind of all mean the same thing. Also, you might have heard them before, even used differently than I'm using them here. But in my head, when talking about AI art, they each have a very distinct meaning. So let me define them for you and highlight the differences. Coherence is the ability for the model to create an image that is believably something without defects or giveaways that indicate that the image couldn't have been made by a thoughtful human. Knowledge is how widely the model understands and can reproduce concepts in the prompt. This is essentially how big the dictionary of people, objects, places, and styles the AI model actually has. Intelligence is the accuracy to which the model can understand context and relationships. This is both understanding that a hot dog is food rather than a dog during summer, as well as what object is what color in or on top of what item. Style is the likelihood that the model will generate an appealing image. I think of it as the magic sauce of artisticness. Lastly, we have creativity, which I think of as the ability for the AI model to think beyond the prompt it was given. If a prompt is underspecified or vague, this dimension is how well the AI fills in the details. So with that explanation out of the way, are you ready to find out how the quality of these models actually compare with one another? Let me introduce to you a very special guest. If you've been following news in the AI art space for any amount of time, you know who he is. If not, it's time you meet MattVidPro. Matt has been covering AI art news like a pro since AI art had news. If you want to stay up to date with the latest info in the AI world, please go and subscribe to him. Check out the top link in the description after you finish this video. Honestly, he was so kind to do this for me, and I would really appreciate if you would show this guy some love for collaborating with me. Anyways, what I did was ask MattVidPro to rate MidJourney, Stable Diffusion, and DALL-2 across all 5 dimensions of AI art on a scale from 1 to 10. Before I saw his answers or heard his explanations, I did the same thing, rating each model. So let me turn it over to him, and then I'll tell you how our scores compare.
Alright, so viewers, here is my rating for each of the 3 models. Starting off with DALL-2 here in coherence, I gave it a 7 out of 10. I think it's the most coherent out of the top 3 models, MidJourney and Stable Diffusion included. MidJourney comes in second place with a 5.5 out of 10 from me personally, and Stable Diffusion coming all the way down with a 5. I've actually done quite a lot of testing with all 3 of these models. MidJourney has definitely got better in a lot of the other departments, but I still think that it falls behind a little bit in comparison to DALL-2 in the coherence. In Stable Diffusion, I think struggles with coherence the most, but I think it's pretty similar to MidJourney in this aspect. I don't think MidJourney is much better than Stable Diffusion at coherence. I remember the classic test in my Discord was, can the corgi have a cigar in his mouth? And in my Discord server, we used to argue about this, that Stable Diffusion wasn't able to get the cigar in the corgi's mouth, but DALL-2 would be able to do it every single time. And with MidJourney, I remember I kept trying to create this image of a frog photographer, and DALL-2 would definitely create a frog that, you know, was holding a camera and everything. And with MidJourney, I just get pictures of frogs. Like, if you took a nature shot of a frog, it would just be like, oh, here's a photo of a frog. And I think that also falls into the intelligence category. But now we're moving on to the knowledge sector of things. How many things does these models actually know about? For DALL-2, it actually is coming in here at last place with a 5 out of 10. I think this isn't necessarily because DALL-2 is a really bad model or something. I think it's just hampered by OpenAI quite a lot with their strict content policy, where everything has to be G-rated. You know, you can't have anything scandalous, or you can't generate any famous people, for example. There's a lot of stuff that can get blocked with DALL-2, and I think that decreases its knowledge base quite a lot. MidJourney comes in at second place. I think MidJourney and Stable Diffusion are very close, but I just think that Stable Diffusion can believably recreate famous people, for example, the absolute best out of all of these. And honestly speaking, if Crayon, aka DALL-E Mini, was to be included in this category, I think it would win out of all of these in the knowledge category. I think Crayon has really good knowledge of the outside world, but honestly, I think MidJourney and Stable Diffusion could go back and forth on this. I really haven't done enough testing, but I know DALL-2 is in last place. Alright, coming up into the intelligence category, I gave this one to DALL-2 in a pretty strong point. I think DALL-2 is definitely the best here at understanding the prompt and understanding where things are supposed to go in the prompt and what stuff is supposed to be. Although there could be some real outliers here where MidJourney might do something way better than the both of them, like DALL-2 wouldn't be able to get it, Stable Diffusion wouldn't be able to get it, but MidJourney would absolutely do a slam dunk. And same thing for Stable Diffusion. I think that's possible. There could be some serious outliers with Stable Diffusion. It's actually quite common, but in general, if you're looking for a model that can really understand a prompt and kind of get it down to a T, I think DALL-2 is still your best bet with this, as long as the prompt doesn't include anything that violates OpenAI's content policy. Now, moving on to style. How stylized and beautiful is the image at the end of the day? I gave this one to MidJourney. I think MidJourney, and I think you guys will agree with me, just produces the most stylized and coolest looking images right out of the gate. Sometimes DALL-E 2 can do something similar, but it's nowhere near MidJourney's level. This is like something that's very specific to MidJourney. I think it's something that we've seen with MidJourney since its inception. Stable Diffusion definitely doesn't really focus on this at all. If you want a really nice, stylized, beautiful prompt out of Stable Diffusion, you're gonna have to work at your prompt for a while to make sure all the keywords are correct and you're getting that nice, beautiful imagery. DALL-E 2 can sometimes add in a little bit of style, but nowhere near MidJourney's level. And yeah, I think DALL-E 2 and Stable Diffusion could go back and forth on this one as well. But DALL-E 2 honestly surprisingly can add a lot of style in there. And finally, moving on to the creativity aspect of things, I absolutely had to give this one to MidJourney as well. I think this kind of goes hand in hand almost with the style aspect of things. MidJourney is really good at just adding random little details in a prompt. Like if you're asking for like some cyberpunk tech suit, MidJourney is just gonna throw a bunch of little intricate details into that image. Stable Diffusion might do it as well, and I think it definitely does it better than DALL-E. If you don't specify your prompt with DALL-E, you're not going to get good results. That's something I've noticed with DALL-E. You need to specify what you want in your prompt, and it can be really, really good when you really tweak that prompt and get it really nice and chock full of great information. You're going to get fantastic results out of DALL-E 2. However, if you're just looking to type some words in there and hope for a good result, like a few, sentences, like 5 words or something like that, you're not really going to get the best results with DALL-E 2. The best results are definitely MidJourney, then maybe followed by Stable Diffusion, but I think Stable Diffusion as well, you need to really put some words in there in your prompt. But MidJourney, actually, I have heard, I don't know if this is just rumor or not, but they might actually do a little bit of tweaking to your prompt before it gets passed through the image generation phase. So yeah, MidJourney is definitely the most creative in my opinion. By the way, everyone, please let me know what you think about my answers here. Am I wrong? Let me know in the comments. And Gilbatry, I have to say, fantastic job at creating these different categories here. I think it is a really great way to split up and organize the different pros and cons of each of these generation models. And thank you very much for having me on the channel here as a little cameo. Viewers right now, go down there and hit that like button. Trust me, Gilbatry deserves it for creating this content.
Take a look at this. If we pull up my ratings as well, you'll see, well, of course my scores are a bit different, but if you look at first place, second place, and third place, Matt and I are completely the same, except for the third place score on intelligence. He had MidJourney and Stable Diffusion tied, and I put MidJourney just a bit higher. I think this speaks volumes to how, when we define our terms, it becomes much easier to compare these models against each other and speak about their strengths and weaknesses. Since, on the whole, Matt and I agree, I don't think there's any point for me to spend another few minutes going into detail about my score. I tried to put as many examples as I could while Matt was talking so you could see for yourself and hopefully decide whether or not you agree with us. Instead, I want to summarize. Clearly, each of these models have strengths, and if you're picking a model based solely on quality, this is what I would tell you to consider. DALL-E 2 is the power horse of these models. The images it makes are accurate to the prompt, and it can handle the most complexity out of all three. If you have an intuitive sense of how to make an AI art prompt, and you have a good idea of what you're trying to generate, DALL-E 2 will feel like a genie in a bottle, granting your every wish. Well, every wish deemed suitable by OpenAI, because there are a ton of safeguards to make sure the images are in line with their corporate philosophy. On the flip side, if you're using DALL-E 2 as a novice and have trouble specifying a prompt that will create an interesting image, DALL-E 2 will be disappointing and often a little lame. That brings us to MidJourney. MidJourney is the trendy and cool younger brother. Whatever your prompt is, MidJourney will follow through and make something pretty. You'll want to show it to your friends and you'll impress them, but there's often something about it that's just kind of weird. Maybe the eyes are a little screwy, or maybe it just doesn't know what a centaur was, so it kinda guessed. But consistent and beautiful, MidJourney is a reliable generator of good ideas, even if they will always have that MidJourney feel. Finally, Stable Diffusion is freedom. With the largest dictionary out of all of these models, you can probe this AI to see how it interprets just about anything. That wide dictionary comes at a price, because the things it makes a certain way. The images are technically in line with your request, and the AI seems to know what you're talking about, but when you look at the final results, it seemed like it just picked out the details rather than listening to your whole prompt. Often that means the images just look wrong, like they could never physically exist, or they're overfit because Stable Diffusion knows what Shrek looks like, so why would a lightsaber be in his hands? Each of these models clearly has strengths. DALL-2 wins in coherence and intelligence, MidJourney wins in style and creativity, while Stable Diffusion wins in knowledge. For me, I would say that coherence and style are the most important dimensions for the art I try to generate. Since DALL-2 and MidJourney are both winning one of those, I would have to look to intelligence as a tiebreaker, which puts DALL-2 as the winner in my book. But you might have different preferences than me. So that is price and quality. Now we can finish up and talk about experience. All of this analysis has been from the perspective of the official website or platform that is hosted by each model's creator. MidJourney is through their Discord bot, Stable Diffusion on Dream Studio, and DALL-2 on OpenAI's website. I do need to give props to Stable Diffusion. Dream Studio is intuitive and clear, and the most exciting thing is that there is an array of settings right there on the screen in front of you while you're generating art. So you can always tell which settings led to which results, and it makes it really easy to tweak those settings and generate again. One thing that bothers me though is that you do need to download your images kind of as you go, otherwise you lose them forever. As far as generating via MidJourney, the bot has a learning curve. They have been doing things to improve the experience, but all in all, it is tough to try to figure out what is the best setting for each image you're creating. Even what setting you're actually using in any given moment often gets lost in an array of tags. What I will say MidJourney excels at is their gallery. Going back and looking through everything you or someone else has generated is easy, clear, and super satisfying. What I think is incredibly disheartening is that DALL-2 has no settings at all. No adjustment to aspect ratio, no way to set a style and stick with it. This little text field is exactly what you get, and it's underwhelming. On the flip side, DALL-2 wins the battle for in-painting and out-painting. Its coherence and intelligence makes it possible to continue working on and improving a single image until it is just right, though the cost goes up with every edit you make. But MidJourney doesn't even have this feature, so what you generate initially is the only image you'll ever be able to get. Stable Diffusion does have it, and the UI is pretty good, but there's a problem. The moment you start making the image bigger or you erase a little too much, Stable Diffusion's lack of coherence really shows through. Instead of in-painting, it often feels like just painting, which is an awful waste of what could have been an incredible feature. Okay, I don't want this video to go on forever. We talked about how the prices compare for these models, we talked about their performance, and what it's like to actually use them. The big question, is DALL-2 worth the price? Should you shell out $15 for that to get eaten away 13 cents at a time? I didn't want it to be this, but my answer is yes. I have been paying for all three of these models for as long as I've had access to them, and I have generated thousands of images, and now that I've unlocked DALL-2, it's the model I keep coming back to. I generate something in one model, and then I ask myself if DALL-2 could do better. Unless it's against their TOS, the answer is almost always yes. But at the same time, having generated as many images as I have, I am familiar with how to prompt an AI to get exactly what I want. I milk those 13 cents for as much value as I possibly can, and I could imagine it would be devastating to be generating art and then realizing your prompt was wasted over and over again. DALL-2 is not the art model to learn prompt engineering on. my advice would be to start somewhere cheaper, and then figure out what you like, build your skills, and only when you feel like you're hitting your limits and you're out of free DALL-E prompts, then you should pull out your credit card and spend the money. AI is constantly changing, and all three of these models consider themselves to be in beta. I tried to format this video in a way that will help you understand how to make an informed decision for yourself. Comparing AI models is complicated, and the terms often get lost, but I think it's important that everyone understands how they are different. What I haven't gone over in this video is that some models are good at specific objects or styles and not others. If you're interested in that sort of thing, go ahead and follow me on TikTok or Instagram, because I have an array of shorts coming out that will be showing you what model is best for dragons or trees or architecture or faces, fingers, glass, and all sorts of other things. I put a link to my TikTok and Instagram in the description, right under MattVidPro's channel. Anyhow, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.